Shalom everyone, I'm on my mobile phone at the moment and I'll be speaking about wizards. I want to keep this very short because I don't want you to develop any unhealthy interest in this subject. I do and I am obliged to reveal this information to you because it is relevant to your daily life. And for those of you who are born again, who are following the Most High, it's especially relevant unto you because wizards are always opposing the power of God that's working through the believer, always. Look at Moses. You had Jamnes and Jambres, those two Egyptian wizards that opposed the power of the Holy Spirit that was operating through Moses. Later you had Jezebel and Ahab fighting, and Jezebel and Ahab were fighting against the prophet Elijah, and the wizards of Jezebel were resisting the power of the Holy Spirit. You go further, you go later in time, you will find that the scribes and Pharisees, men who were wizards in disguise, they were fighting against the Lord Jesus, and they even crucified him. In agreement with the Romans, of course. But so wizards are a relevant subject. So, okay, pick up your pen. I'm going to make some notes for you, or better. I mean, you are going to make some notes based on what I'm saying. And I can make a longer video or audio clip about this, but if it's right, if I'm doing this right, you will have enough with this audio, and in this audio I name some stuff. You can use those terms to do your own research, because I always enjoy people doing their own research. Okay? Well, what are wizards? A wizard is a man that has sold himself completely to the dark side. A wizard is always a man. There is no such thing as a female wizard. First of all, wizards hate females. I'm going to repeat one more time. They hate females. Why? Because they are against feminine energy. Because mankind, I'm saying the human race has male and female. So you have male energy and female energy. Because human beings are spirit beings with souls living in bodies. So you are an energy being. So there is female energy and male energy. Male energy is concentrated only upon male energy, with exclusion of feminine energy. Why? Briefly explained, male energy has some superior quality over feminine energy. I'm not saying that female energy is useless, absolutely not. It is quite relevant, but male energy is more powerful than female energy. That's how it is in a spirit realm, because that's how the human race has been built. Okay? Don't argue with me, argue with the Creator, with the Most High. He designed us this way. Here comes the thing. The wizard gets into agreement with unclean spirits, and in this agreement, they forfeit their human rights. They forfeit their human entitlements. They surrender themselves completely to those dark powers, and in exchange, they have paranormal abilities. Not superpowers, but paranormal abilities. And those paranormal abilities are enabled by unclean spirits, whom they also call elemental beings, that begin to inhabit the wizard. And the wizard will learn from then on how to manage those, what they call elemental beings. Other words for elemental beings are Pokemon, Digimon, or Pocket Monster, or you can call them spirit guides. You have diverse names for them. It comes down to the same thing. Okay? And the wizard now has a paranormal ability. That means that they have an ability that isn't natural, that's not inherent in the human design. And they can now operate within this ability. There are limits, there are boundaries, and it's a paranormal ability, so it's dangerous to use it. So the wizard has to be very careful how he uses it, but he will grow into it. And one thing I need to mention before I continue, a wizard is not a magician or an illusionist. When you go to a theater to see someone doing tricks with cards or to do an illusion trick, those are just tricks. There's no demonic power nor anything else coming with it. It's just a show. You pay to watch a show. That's it. Okay? So don't mistake illusionists, whom we also call magicians, with wizards. A sorcerer is someone, can be either a male or a female, that uses drugs in order to manipulate people's behaviors. And then you have witchcraft. Witchcraft is the emotional manipulation of people through energy. That's witchcraft. Okay? Now, first of all, manipulation of itself doesn't have to be wrong. You can use manipulation to get someone away from undesired outcome. So if you have, for example, you have a group of people that wants to go, how do I say, they want to have a nice weekend, they want to go into the woods, and they want to go on into a certain park. But you know that in that park, there are bad stuff happening. So instead of telling those people that there are bad stuff happening, you know they won't believe you, you know it's going to cause a lot of trouble. So instead, you offer them something much better and use suggestive language to provoke them to want the alternative. And now they choose alternative, and now they are away from danger. So manipulation doesn't always have to be wrong, okay? But most of the time, people use it for the wrong ends, okay? And witchcraft is a type of manipulation, but not all manipulation is witchcraft, okay? And witches, most of the time, are female. Witchcraft is centered around feminine energy. There are also male witches, but you don't have that often. Wizards is exclusively for men, and it's against females. Okay, I'm repeating it because it's very important. And wizardry is a discipline that, well, it is a discipline. It's a discipline that's being taught at secret academies or secret universities. Some of them are not that secret anymore. They're now out in the open. You can go and apply to follow a course in managing psychic energies, or you can follow a course into, not really a course, but you can follow a whole program, a whole major in becoming a wizard. I mean, there are places that do such things because people have become so accustomed to the occult that they think, okay, it happens. But in most places, it's hidden because most people are creeped out by such stuff, and they should be. Okay, and remember, wizards are a cannibalistic cult. That's what they are. Because look, wizards need the suffering of children in order to maintain their power. It's the suffering of children, which includes sorry, I'm a bit tired now, but okay, let me continue. This includes satanic ritual abuse or MK Ultra programming, that's repeated sexual molestation of children, which causes great trauma over time in the child's brain. This is suffering that generates a lot of waste energy, and demons need waste energy to operate. You also have the sacrificing of children that often happens, and cannibalism, where they capture their victims, sometimes also adults, and they eat them ritualistically. These are all things that are involved in wizardry, because they need to do corrupt physical things in order to conform themselves to the image of those demons they are worshipping. Because it's by doing this that those demons are enabled by all the negative energy to perform on their behalf. That's where their paranormal abilities lie. So those paranormal abilities can only remain active with them as long as they give a lot of negative energy to the demonic realm. So now we know that about wizards. Understand this. The world is led by wizards. when I say this, I just said it, but when I say things like this, people tend to look at me and say, shit, what are you talking about? The world is led by wizards. Look, most of such people, maybe you're one of them, maybe not, but most of such people, they went to school, they finished high school, they went to college, they got a degree, now they have a job, so the only thing they know is what society has taught them. They never looked beyond what society has taught them, and they never did the research to find out what's behind society, or what's behind many of those traditions that they are holding on to. And this is what you need to understand. Wizards often reveal who they are through symbolism, through the use of numerology. They love using mathematical numbers. They are obsessed with that. And through suggestions, through movies, through talk shows, and through the mainstream media. Don't get me wrong here. Most of the men, because history only relates to men, most of the men that work in corporations, in banks, with mainstream media, even those at the top, they're not wizards. Some of them don't even know wizardry exists. When they hear the word wizard, they think about the Wizard of Oz, or think about that fancy figure called Merlin from the Arthur sagas. They don't know anything, because that's what a lot of people think. They think that those at the top, they control everything. Look, you have bankers, you have presidents, you have monarchs, kings, emperors, you have religious leaders. You have those people at the top. And yes, they are involved in decision making. But those are the people you can trace, you can see. But we don't see what's behind those people. And the power behind those people, most of the time, I'm not saying always, I'm saying most of the time, the power behind those people are wizards. So when we think of the elite, we think about those people with large plots of land, with billions of euros on their bank accounts. We think they are the elite. No, the elite are the wizards. Most of the people in this world who are at the top, I'm not saying all people. Okay, there are people out there, for example, you have people that love designing clothes, and they begin to design clothes, and they open their own small fashion brand, and they give fashion shows from time to time. They are not Armani, they are not Versace, they're not one of those mainstream brands, but they are fashion designers. Without selling out, without demonic contracts, without being part of any cult. There are also singers that manage to become artists, and they even bring out albums. So there are people in this world who are just using their natural God-given talent, and they have an impact. That happens. But I'm talking about those that are at the very top. Most of those people, they are backed up by wizards. They've made contracts with wizards. The wizards are the elite, or they also call themselves the Illuminati. Illuminati is the Latin name that they have chosen to use in mainstream media, and many people began using that name also. All right? And this is how it works, basically. Those wizards want to keep people in a state of fear. Why? Because when people are in a state of fear, they can't think straight. They can't feel well. In a sense that what I mean with they can't feel well is that their feeling is hindered. So they can't have empathy towards others. Empathy is that you are capable of sensing someone else's feelings. There's a difference between emotions and feelings and sentiments. I'll try to explain that in a video. A feeling is something you have chemically in your body. Emotion is energy that's running through your body and around you. And a sentiment is the attachment that you have with certain feelings in your memory. Now, empathy is a spiritual ability that all humans ought to have, and they do have it. Is the ability to relate to how someone else is feeling in their skin. Now, this is a very limited ability, but people have this. And this is important in order to operate in a human community. But when people are in a state of fear, this ability is hindered. They will not be able to relate well to others. They'll only be able to relate to an image of themselves. That happens when you are in fear. So people that are in fear, they tend to be narcissistic. I'm not saying they are narcissists, but they tend to be narcissistic because they become frozen in their thinking. All right? But when people are frozen in their thinking, they become static. And this static, I will also say this staticness of them, I'm not sure if that's existing English now. If not, I just made it up to explain this. This staticness of those people is what's keeping them, it keeps them in bondage. And after a while, the people begin to feel they're not going to notice anymore that they are in a static condition. They're not going to notice it because most people around them are in a static condition, and because they have now become comfortable being static, that means being in the grip of fear, now they're becoming suspicious to everyone else that's not in fear. So now they're going to attack everyone that's not holding on to the collective pattern they're holding on to. Because that's what happens when you are in fear, you begin to hold on to you begin to hold on to an escape. And that escape, that relief that you're holding on to, that's what we often call culture or society. Now, I'm not saying culture is that, but we call it culture. And society is the collective escape that people are holding on to. So society itself is a fear construction. And the only way this fear construction can remain in operation is if when enough fear is placed into the community. Because without fear, the fear construction that we call society can't operate. It falls apart. And most people are invested mentally in what we call society. So most people won't realize that they are contributing to our fear construction because they've been deceived. And wizards want to keep people in this fear condition. It's through fear that they control you. And most people aren't even aware they are in fear because to them it's normal. They felt this way their whole lives. They've operated this way their whole lives. Their uncles, their grandparents, their parents operate this way. So when you come and tell them that they are in fear, they're going to get upset with you. And sometimes you better can't tell people the plain truth because they might act out against you and act out their pain through violence upon you. Because it's very upsetting to find out you've been lied to and that you were cheated while you were not even aware of it. But okay, wizards are serving the dark side. They are serving the needs and the agenda of those unclean spirits. And in order to do this, they need to have people out of the community to operate together, to cooperate with them. Okay, let me give a quick illustration. I didn't want to make this audio recording long, but when needed, I will make it long to reveal this to you. Okay, so let's say you have, let me think of a country, for example, Tanzania. I don't know how many people live in Tanzania, so let me name just a number, 60 million people, let's say 40 million people. You have 40 million people that live in that area, and you have these imaginary lines that are the borders of Tanzania, because those lines don't really exist, but we imagine them. So you have those people live in that environment. Let's say you have around 3,000 wizards over there. That's a lot of wizards. And those wizards, they want to keep those 40 million people in a state of fear. To do this, they will need to have a pattern of violence that people adhere to. Because when people are in fear, they will hold on to they will seek for an outlet. They will hold on to an escape, and that escape is a pattern of repetition. It's a repetition that people will hold on to. So they provide the pattern, That includes how you speak to people, how you address people, how to behave, how not to behave. So a whole program they write up. Then you have people in the community who wants to have power and influence, and they come to the wizard for power and influence. And they agree with that program, and they begin to act it out. And this is how it works. When you have wealth, when you have land, when you have stuff, people tend to follow you. People tend to give significance onto you. It's very weird, but people do this. So in that way, now you have a bunch of rich people who are sold out to those wizards, and they are acting out the program. So other people begin to imitate that, and before you know it, everyone in the community has some pattern that they acknowledge themselves in. Now society has been formed. But now people need to remain distracted from the fact that they are in fear. So now you have singers, dancers, musicians, all kinds of talented people that are recruited by those wizards through organizations in order to distract the people. And those musicians and those entertainers that are recruited, they are informed about the agenda and what's behind it, and they have to perform rituals together with those wizards in order for them to get their elite position as artists, musicians, or whatever their occupation is. You get how this is going? So now you have a society. People are stuck at it, and they're also distracted. And because they are distracted, they won't notice what's going on. And now at the same time, you also have politicians who are also sold out to those wizards. They are now arranging attacks upon the Tanzanian people. For example, some of the politicians, they hire some soldiers from some foreign troops, and they pay those foreign troops to attack some villages in Tanzania, to kill some people. Or through the mass media, they pretend as if there was an attack, but most people that see the news on TV think it's real. Anyway, something is being done to make people feel that they're under attack. This is causing a collective trauma. We will have serious emotional and mental consequences for people within that population. And now, those same wizards also have another puppet politician who comes with a solution. And that solution is to keep those people trapped in fear. That's how the world operates, folks. So wizards are the psychopaths that run this world. And they don't care about you, nor how you feel, nor how bad it will impact you. The only thing they care about is that you remain in fear. They want you to be afraid. They are the terrorists. A lot of people think that Muslims are terrorists. Or they think, well, those black people are thugs. Or they have all these stereotypes that the media fed on them. Hold on a minute. Mainstream media is led by top corporations, and most of those men and other companies at the top of mainstream media, they are sold out to wizards. It's through wizardry that they manage to keep the dominant position. So the mainstream media, the word media, is a plural, a Latin plural of medium, which means a portal of transporting information. A medium is a clairvoyant woman that is making herself available to let demons work through her. So media is a plural of medium. Okay, so I just want to point that out. So the mainstream media is used by wizards to give you those stereotypes. They are teaching you who to hate, who not to hate, who to love, what to like, what to dislike. So they create these fictive enemies, commit false flag attacks, and now you are feeling pain towards those fictive enemies. So now when you hear the name Abdul, or you hear some Arab name or some Muslim name, you immediately think terrorists. You immediately become afraid. Why? You are being conditioned to hate Arabs. And Arabs at the same time, not only Arabs, for example, that live in Tanzania, because I'm using Tanzania as an example, Arabs that live in Tanzania are going to feel threatened because people are really believing that Arabs are terrorists. And now, so now the Arabs also have agents from the Switzers that put them up against mainstream society. You see how this is going, folks? This is what's happening worldwide. Okay? And Wizards, folks, I don't repeat it, they hate females. Their hatred of women, they display it all the time. But they display it in such a manner that you're not even aware that is hatred against women. How? Haven't you noticed that in rap music lately, I'm not talking about hip hop and rap music, I'm not talking about the street, well, not hip hop or rap, let me just say street music. We had young people that lived in poor urban blocks in the United States. They began to make music to resist against oppression of society. That was street music that they began to label hip hop or rap music, because those were poor young people with talent that wanted to make it. And that's admirable. But what happened? The wizards that around this world, they saw that this movement of street music and street artists, that there is potential, economic potential in it, and they have infiltrated and taken over this street movement. When you think, if you would have said hip hop or rap in the 1960s or in the 1970s, in 1980s, people would think of, well, they would think of resistance, of pointing out the faults of society. If you say that today, well, people think of hip hop, rap, they think of those pimps, those playboys with hundreds of women around them who are desperate for attention. They speak about hoes, speak about how they are raping and hitting and mistreating women. They also talk about killing one another in those lyrics. That's hatred against females. Why? Because today, many of those rappers and people in hip hop, they're sold out to wizards. That's why they need to act out the agenda of the wizards. But because you don't know that it's wizardry behind it, you begin to hate everyone that likes hip hop, everyone that likes street music. You begin to dislike them. You see what's happening? It's causing division. It's causing tension in the community. It's causing fear. And with fear comes violence. With fear comes a lot of crime, a lot of generational trauma. That's what wizards want. Look, I don't intend to make this audio recording any longer. I just want to point out to you, and I did it with, look, I don't know everything. I'm also learning. I humbly admit all of that. With my best ability, I've explained to you shortly in this audio recording who and what wizards are. And that whole thing of hating females, when you open your eyes and you begin to pay attention, you will notice it. For example, just a quick example before I end this audio recording. You have a lot of women that have a poor self-image because they keep comparing themselves to mannequin models. A lot of women starve themselves in order to have a slim body figure. And some women even become mentally ill, and they even become physically sick, and they need to be hospitalized. I've witnessed this happening. There was a girl in high school. She became so thin that they need to hospitalize her, and she remained weeks away from attending classes. And after a while, praise the Lord, she recovered. But I mean, such things happen, and it's very terrible to see that such things around you. What's behind this? That image of the Barbie is derived from a demoness. It's derived from the Aphrodite, which is a female vampire. It's one of the deities that were worshipped in ancient Greece. Now, that's where the Barbie figure is derived from. Now, there's nothing wrong with a blonde woman or a brunette woman with a slim body figure. There's nothing wrong with that. But they take, those wizards, they take the image of the Aphrodite, they make it mainstream through their agents, because they know that women are going to compare themselves to that image. Because if that image is repeated over and over again, people become attached to it. People begin to see it as part of themselves. And that's what they're doing. And at the same time, they have those Hollywood stars who go through plastic surgery to look like this Barbie model or this slim model. And not slim, I mean a thin model. Forgive me, I'm not native in English, but okay, this thin body figure. And now women in the community, they have role models. Even the parents will tell you, look at that woman over there. She has a nice figure, she's sexually attractive, and she has finished her education. So she has beauty, she has looks, and she's intelligent. Parents think they are doing what's best for their daughters. But what parents are doing unknowingly is that they are cooperating with the agenda of the wizards. Because now you have young women that, if they are not resembling that image, they think they are a failure. They think they're not lovable. They think they deserve to die. And then you also have demons that are hovering around. And when those demons see a young woman being depressed, and they see that the depression is caused by not being able to reflect that image, those demons are going to attach themselves to those women. And now they're beginning to run those women's lives. What is this? It's fear. Look, during the slave trade, when the blacks were transported to the Caribbean and to America, they were fed swine meat, pork. The Israelites before that never wanted to eat pork, but they began to eat pork now, and one side effect of eating all that pork, all that fat, was that a lot of the women became obese. And it was common to have obese women amongst the blacks. So even when slavery was over, this remained within the culture. And this caused a lot of blacks to begin to see a woman with a big butt as an attractive woman. That's the beauty ideal that developed in many black communities as a result of what happened during slavery. So in such communities, wizards are using that image to cause harm. But in more European communities, they use the image of the Aphrodite. So wizards are using whatever is available onto them in order to keep the masses under control. And wizards are very few, yet they control billions, and they do it through fear. And most of those people, at what we call the top of economy, the top of religion, the top of the education system, they're not even aware. Some of them are not even aware that they are pawns used by wizards. Few are they that know the agenda, and I fully agree with it. And look, wizards, as I mentioned before, they will mock you to your face. But because they're not there physically, they will do it through the media. Often, they will command their agents in the mainstream media to air fake news. And in the fake news messages, the presenters, they don't know anything about the agenda, but the presenters are ordered by their bosses to use certain words, certain numbers in the news message. Why is this happening? It's so that you can know that it's a lie. It's fake. Sometimes the people at the television at the media station, they have to wear certain clothes with certain colors. Why? Because the head of that media station, he's part of the agenda, and he is making those employees wear those clothes with those colors to signify to other wizards that are watching it that the news stories that are being aired are fake, that they are behind it. Look, another thing, wizards often you will see them married, but that marriage is just a front. They may have sex with their so-called wife to have children, but wizards, they tend to prefer male attention. Now, I'm not saying that all wizards are homosexual. I'm not even touching the homosexual agenda and the LGBT issues in this audio recording. I'm not doing that. But there are wizards that really have this strong dislike of women that they will look for a transvestite to attach themselves to. So you will see them in public. If they have a public position, you will see them with a woman. You think what appears to you to be a woman, and you think it's a real woman, but it's really a transvestite. And lately, they are becoming quite open with this. Another thing wizards do. Oh, I'm sorry, I had to shut down this audio recording already, but nevertheless, I'll keep on speaking. Another thing wizards often do. They have done this throughout history. And they are repeating it over and over again because it's effective. They are erasing a terrifying feminine image, or let's say a fear image. They erect a fear image, a feminine fear image, and people begin to attach themselves to that feminine fear image because that feminine fear image is a representation of society. And because society is a fear construction that's related to feminine energy, men will be perceived as a danger. So after they've erected this feminine fear construct, they also visualize it in an image. Then, because most people operate in dualistic thinking, in their brains they're going to perceive the opposite with this male energy as dangerous. And when this is going to give tension in the community, so when tensions rise in the community, now some people have to bleed. The urge for vengeance and the urge for an outlet for pain is there. And the wizards will provide the outlet for pain. That's through war. Whether it's a civil war or a war